Hey folks, it's Mike. I wanted to quickly show you how to do a pivot table. I'm going to do this in class today, so I wanted to give you another recording so that you can take a look at it a little bit more slowly if you need to, if you haven't ever seen it before. So first things first, before you do a pivot table, your data has to look like this, where each variable is in columns, and at the top of each column is the variable name. So we have, this is the data from the first section's survey, and I've taken the names out, but I have the first initial and last initial, so if you're in that section, maybe you can find yourself. And I'll post this data or something like it so that you can take a look at it and try this along the way. So before we get started, to get started on a pivot table, we go into the Insert ribbon on the top, click on Pivot Table, and then it asks which range you want, so you want to kind of pick everything here if it isn't already picked, selected. And then I would always just say put it in a new worksheet. There's some other options that we're not going to use, but you can use it to get some data from somewhere else, like in a different database or something like that. Let's click OK, and we get something like this. So how this works is we have column labels that we can drop any of these variables over here, or row labels, and then what we call, this is the little summation sign, right? So some sort of value in the middle. It's going to do some calculation for us in the middle. So first let's just do simple counts. So we did this in class where we wanted to find out if there was like a mode first initial, somebody who had the what first initial in class happened the most often. So we can like either grab this guy and drop him in there in the row, right? And so what it does is it shows us every single first initial. And if there's more than one of them, it doesn't show you again, right? So if we want to know how many each of those are, we have to drop something into this little values thing. And it actually, at this point, it doesn't really matter what you put in here because it's just a count. It's just going to count how many times. So you can see the default over here is count of last initial. So it could be count of anything, right? So we see here that we have 4 observations that have the first initial of A, 1 observation with the initial C, 1 of G, and so on. So we can sort this so that it makes a little bit more sense. We have to click inside the pivot table somewhere, and then make sure you're in Pivot Table Tools Options, and then there's the Z to A or A to Z, so we can click either of those and it sorts it. So it looks like we have, both A and J both had 4 observations. So that's how we look at counts. So if we can sort of get rid of this guy, we just drag it and put it back in here. Now let's look at how we can do some other calculations. So let's just kind of click a bunch of these things. So let's click on height, exercise, TV, online, and sleep. So remember, these are all kind of continuous variables. That means that we can do some calculations with them. And so far the default is sum, right? So we can say here sum of height, sum of exercise, sum of TV. So what we really want is maybe like average or something like that. So it's not too hard to do that. We go over here to the values, click on it, say value field setting, click on that guy, and go to average. So unfortunately we have to do this for every single one, which is not fun. This is one thing that's, pivot tables are really powerful. This part that you can't just tell them all to be average is one thing that's sort of driven me crazy. But other than that, pivot tables pretty much rock. So here we go, we got it all. So we could quickly format these guys so that they look a little better. And then I also, it might make a little more sense instead of to have these in the columns, I can drag these and say I want the values in the rows. So now it's going down. And there we go. So now we have the average of height, exercise, TV, online, sleep. And we can actually go in here and type these things, type in here. So if you don't want it to say average of, you could just put height. Nope, it doesn't like that because there's already something called height. So you could put like average height. So if you don't like what it's already written in here, you can go ahead and change that. You can even change this guy. Nope, you can't. Alright, so that's all. So one other thing that maybe we probably won't do this in class, but this is a little extra. So if I put this column guy back over here, then I can maybe I can grab this branch and stick it in the row label. So now actually I get a whole bunch of new information. So what, instead of our grand total average for everyone in the class, now I know the average for each branch, right? So the height of Air Force is on average 67 inches. For Army, it's 69. Marines 69.83, Navy 69, and the one civilian in our class is a little taller, so he gets to look like he has a higher average height. So anyways, that actually becomes very useful, and we're going to do this quite a bit, I think, in another couple weeks, where we can sort of split things out. You could do this, in a regular data, but it would take a lot more work. So that's kind of cool. All right, so that's it.